thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Julian Alcid, Chief Marketplace Engagement Officer at Social Tech, and we're a social benefit corporation that builds technology for social good. My co-host today is Al Lewis, who's Vice President of Economic and Workforce Development at Bellevue College in beautiful Washington State. Al, would you like to wave to your adoring audience here? Um, what,
Absolutely.
what binds together, what I want to say is that over the next 2 hours, Al and I will be joined by an all-star lineup to talk about reimagining the learner and talent marketplace. As we go through the presentation, I'll encourage folks to type questions into the Q&A box, which you'll find that at the bottom of your Zoom to the bottom right. And so what binds together this all-star group is a belief in the central role of community colleges in workforce development. Community colleges, are a national treasure. I like to say the nation's training infrastructure. They provide a ticket to the middle class, ongoing skills upgrades, and needed social support for a diverse population of learners. And they do so at a scale unmatched by any other training entity. But community colleges can be challenging to work with. Their courses are often hard to access. We found it can take as many as a dozen clicks just to register, for example. Employers don't always know how best to engage with community colleges, and learners don't often know the return on investment of a given course. By our estimate, there are 64.5 million working learners in this country. And by that, I mean individuals who need training to get a better job. And with the pandemic, addressing the workforce needs of this population is central to our recovery as a nation. And that's a statement that I feel very strongly cuts across the country, across political lines, very broadly shared. And so in addition to making sure that these 64.5 million working learners get the training they need, we also need to make sure that they're connected efficiently to the 30 million employers who are going to grow our economy. So today, you'll hear from the visionary leaders of 7 community colleges who built Unmudl. Unmudl is an online marketplace for these working learners and employers. Now, educational institutions are historically slow to change, but the Unmudl college leaders and their outstanding teams have put their reputations on the line and dedicated significant energy to building out Unmudl. And they've done it in just 1 year, which is really quite amazing. So today, I'm pleased to report that the Unmudl marketplace is live and open for business at unmudl.com. Yay. Don't go there now, though. Stay here, stay with us. But go immediately upon completion of this session. What's so striking about Unmudl is that in some ways, about this whole venture, is it really is all about the technology. In building Unmudl, we're rethinking the very processes and workflows and policies that have bogged us down in the past. And it's really disruption in the best sense. So you'll hear about the vision of the Unmudl college leaders, what this means for the business of education, for educators themselves, for employers, and for learners. And our format will include conversations with the college leaders, as well as key partners and stakeholders, including employers and students and national thought leaders. So before I turn it over to Al to introduce himself in the first panel, I do want to say that we're deeply saddened by the recent passing of Dr. Jerry Weber, the former president of Bellevue College, and an initial enthusiastic investor in Unmudl. And I'm sure that Jerry would be very, very excited to know that Unmudl's come to fruition. So Al, it's all yours.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you for that great introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Albert Lewis Jr. I'm the Vice President of Economic and Workforce Development at Bellevue College. And we are proud to be one of the founding colleges of Unmudl. It's interesting. When we were first approached about this opportunity, we were very skeptical because of the time involved and the whole concept. But the more we thought about it, it made a lot of sense. One of the things that we pride ourselves on, as many community colleges do, is being able to provide relevant training to to workforce at different stages in their development. And so my task today is to introduce our first speaker and first panel. I'd like to introduce to you Parminder Giselle. She's the CEO of Social Tech and the founder of Work and Learn Futures Lab, located in the Silicon Valley. So I would like to bring to the screen Parminder.
Thank you, Al. Thanks, Julian and Jamae and Tiffany. So hi, everybody. It's been a year since at the last Close It. Since then, 5 and now 7 community colleges have stepped out of their comfort zones, co-created Unmudl.com to unmuddle the future of working and the future of learning. And they've taken control of their own future. So today I have with me Lee Lambert, who's the chair of the Unmudl Steering Council and chancellor of Pima Community Colleges, Ed Leach from NYSOD, who has been a major supporter, and Tracy Hartzler from Central New Mexico out of Albuquerque. Original founding members and collaborators that have taken a hold of the future. So by coming together through Unmudl to form a national network of community colleges, each of the colleges are melding together their physical infrastructure with an overlaid digital marketplace to make their courses, services, credentials, and space easily available to their locale, but even more importantly, worldwide. Today, with over 150 courses from 7 colleges, they've created a trifecta environment for learners with paths to work, college credit, and industry credentials. Today, Unmudl.com is open for business and stretches coast to coast from San Diego to SUNY Broome in Binghamton, New York. Here's an inspiration from Jordan Matheson that says it all.
Learning opportunities got you befuddled? Log on now, we'll help you finish the puzzle. Multiple courses wrapped up in one bundle, helping you to get your futures unmuddled. Helping you to get your futures unmuddled. Helping you to get your futures unmuddled.
You're going to hear from Jordan a little later today. Unmudl, the course to jobs marketplace, streamlines this relationship between skills-driven education and employment, so that learners can shop a one-stop skills-driven marketplace for community college courses and services that are available on demand, including both online and in person for hands-on. And so employers can also recruit directly from all the community colleges for the most diverse, untapped, highly qualified talent pool anywhere. So why and how did the founding colleges and NYSOD pull this off in a year? And why is the trifecta bet to foster solid connections for learners among college credit, work, and industry credentials a good bet for the future? Lee, as chair of the Unmudl Steering Council and chancellor of Pima, what compelled you and your leadership to make such a risky bet for the future? Are there any trends that drove your decision-making that you might point to?
Well, Parminder, thank you for the question. I will first want to say thank you to you and your team for your tremendous leadership and really bringing forward this concept that is now a reality to us in the Unmudl group. And we're proud to be a founding member. I think as we look at the trends that really helped shape my thinking, it revolved around 3 pieces. One is Industry 4.0. That's the integration of the physical, digital, and biological worlds, along with the enabling 4 superpowers, not countries, but artificial intelligence, mobile technology, cloud computing, and the Internet of Things. So you layer that over the reality of the demographic shifts that have been occurring in our country. As you know, coming out of the Great Recession, the fertility rates have been pretty low. That's going to impact us on the K-12 pipeline to our colleges. But what we're also seeing is the graying of the United States happening at the same time. And then the fastest growing segment of learners are going to be those adult learners. And many of them now, as you know, are going to be more and more people of color. So that's another important piece that added into the equation. Speaking of the adult learners, if you look at the data from Strata that they've been tracking pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, it's very clear. These adult learners want more opportunities for non-degree pathways. They need to get short-term training, to something that's relevant to a career area that's going to pay a livable family working wage and getting those skills. So those are three areas that have really been important to us at Pima Community College.
Wow, that's awesome, Lee. Thanks so much for kind of setting that big picture for us. You know, Ed, I think maybe if you could kind of add to the conversation a little bit about community colleges and who they see as competitors and how that's been how that's been changing over the years, kind of based on what Lee talked about a little bit. It'd be awesome if you could provide an institutional perspective across, 600 colleges that are a part of NISOD.
Yeah, thank you for providing me with that opportunity, Perminder. And also let me echo Lee's comments regarding kudos to you and your team and the founding members and everybody who's gotten us to this point today.
Thank you.
Community and technical colleges no longer have a monopoly on their local student base. Just about everyone has a choice of multiple learning providers, all of which compete directly with community and technical colleges for students. First on the list are other community and technical colleges. Some schools have begun to openly compete with other two-year institutions in their area. A college in New Jersey has frozen its tuition and mandatory fees, in large part because nearby community colleges are less expensive. Local four-year institutions have always offered the first 2 years of instruction. However, some university programming is moving into workforce development, programming that has traditionally been seen as belonging to community and technical colleges. Private and public nonprofit four-year institutions like Purdue University Global and Southern New Hampshire University have considerable online options. Purdue University Global offers more than 175 online programs, including associate degrees, and Southern New Hampshire University offers close to a dozen online associate degree programs. The decline in undergraduate enrollment at public, community, and technical colleges, combined with increasing numbers of students enrolled in for-profit colleges, suggests that they may be competing for some of the same students. Employers have become more receptive to candidates with for-profit online degrees, which makes these institutions increasingly more attractive for some learners. Many professional associations, long known as being advocates of professional development and continuing education, offer credentialing programs and have a huge advantage over community and technical colleges since they have existing relationships with their members. Business and industry, in addition to being consumers of what community and technical colleges produce, can also be competitors. SAS, the Business Analytics Software and Services Company, offers its own professional training and development along with a career resource center. When a soldier joins the United States Air Force with their high school diploma or GED, they're automatically enrolled in a community college of the Air Force. Likewise, a joint Navy Marine Corps effort will create a new United States Naval Community College, which will offer roughly 10 associate degrees and industry certifications in high demand fields needed in the civilian world. Course aggregators like edX, Udemy, Coursera, and Udacity are trusted platforms for education and training for millions of learners. While many students want an accredited credential, community and technical colleges would be wise not to discredit course aggregators and MOOC-based online learning platforms. More than ever before, community and technical colleges will face intense competition from all sorts of educational providers. I suggest that they don't look at the competition as a threat, but instead consider it an opportunity to examine what they're doing and how they can make it better. How can they meet the demand for non-degree offerings and work-related learning by positioning their institution for the increasingly digital future?
Yeah, thanks, Ed. You brought up a lot of examples all the way from SNU to the military to the there is just so much going on that there's need everywhere. And that has a lot of implications for the future business of learning at community colleges. And Tracy, in your role as a brand new president of Central New Mexico College as of January 1, what are some of the implications for the future for the business of learning that you've been facing?
Sure. Well, Parminder, thank you for the introduction, and certainly thanks to my colleagues. I've been familiar with Unmudl and this conversation around the future of work. Fortunately, we've been involved at C&M, have been involved in this conversation for years. So it's fantastic to actually get to today and this week in launching Unmudl. So we're incredibly proud to be part of one of 7 institutions to participate in this event and this effort. And what's so important, I think, about the business of learning, which we had senses of, right? Ed and Lee both described the tea leaves. We've seen these, I don't want to say murmurings, but we've seen these efforts with competitors, and we'll say competitors, other institutions, military, others who are looking at ways to help individuals to meet a need. And so what does that mean for the business of learning? So coming into this role, I looked at the what, the who, and the how, right? So the what is we absolutely are working at community colleges to build on our nimble, responsive nature, to really think about how we have to repackage and provide quality content for value in I wouldn't say short, because certainly experience and skills can't be gained in always a short period of time, but really that, I want to say, just-in-time training. We know that people need skills, particularly now. They are looking for ways to accomplish their professional goals, their economic security, and they're doing that by looking at by seeking solutions. And we want community colleges, which are trusted institutions in local communities, to be the first source for that. And so Unmudl provides that opportunity in terms of the business of learning about the what. How can we repackage? How can we build on our partner institutions? And I do look at our colleagues in our partner institutions here as partners. We certainly offer competitive courses, but we are all able to meet a growing need. As Julian pointed out, 64 million working learners are looking for answers and help. So we're all ready to pitch in. And so we look at the what, how do we package that? And also make sure that we're providing it, as we now know in this pandemic, and just working remotely. We know that the skills that we often provide to our local communities have to have a broader reach, because we know that our students, our working learners, are going to be working for employers who are regional, who are global. And we want our residents and our citizens to be competitive in that marketplace and to be able to be resilient as Industry Revolution 4.0, as Lee noted, continues to progress. So we look at the what, we look at the who. I mentioned the displaced workers, I mentioned our adult learners. We know that our students come in and out of our systems all the time, not the traditional pipeline as much. So we know we have to meet students and working learners where they are. And it's often not in a 2 to 4 year degree program. So Unmudl certainly gives us that platform to do that. And of course, as we look at the business of learning, just like the businesses, the business models that have changed so much in the last couple of months, particularly, we know students just like you and I can get our services, our banking, our groceries online. People want to be able to access education with the same amount of ease. Not surprisingly, they don't find our processes really intuitive. Financial aid, applications, enrollment, need student help, I'm a veteran, or I may have a disability and so I need additional help. Somehow they don't find that to be seamless or easy or accessible. So we absolutely need to change how we do the business of work, because that's one that's expected. We know it's good practice. We know it's what student experience, we know that's what a student experience can lead to a successful result, whether it's training and certainly successful employment. And so the opportunity, and again, and it all goes back to global, community colleges tend to be local, right? We want to meet our local needs, but we increasingly know we have to have one foot in the locality and one foot in our region and our global network, because that's what our residents demand. That's what our mission compels us to provide, to have individuals and students and learners who are able to succeed over time as the community, as the industries change. So I think those are some of the ways we can tie back to that welcome global marketplace. Here we are. So it's great to be part of this panel.
Here we are. Thanks, Tracy. So I have a question for you. And Lee, Ed, Tracy, pointing it to all of you. Why not just join a Coursera or an edX? Why was there a need to have a separate Unmudl? Like, you know, why not just jump on to linked learning or something like that and put your stuff online? What's actually different about Unmudl that helps meet the future space that you all have been thinking about, as far as the future of a student, the future of a community college and your role, and the future of the workforce?
I'd be glad to go first if that's okay. I think first and foremost, uh, it's a crowded marketplace out there with those other providers. And I think it's easy as community colleges to get lost in the mix with the Harvards and the MITs and the Stanfords. So that's one piece. But also I think we have a unique differentiated mission. And by having something that is unique and differentiated to us, where we can bring in what we're best at, and that is connecting the learner with the employer, and then integrating that to our physical infrastructure and building in the credit already into the courses. So you know if you take course X, you're going to get so many credits for that if you want to come over to the credit side. But you also know which employers are already hiring folks with those same credentials, if you will. So I think that differentiation, the uniqueness of us, and not being in a crowded marketplace where we are defining the space and not somebody else, are important variables.
Awesome.
And if I could just add to that, I think that this is a natural progression of the national conversation around its skills and certificates and degrees. It's not an either or. We've all lived through 10 years of the degree. Everybody needs a college degree. Everybody needs a post-secondary credential. And what we've seen is the evolution of this in the last 10 years to say it is skills and a degree. And I really highlight what Lee mentioned in terms of we want to meet people where they are and get the skills and the training they need to either get back into the workforce or get into a different type of work, but also point them directly to here's what you're going to need going on in the rest of your time. You're going to learn lots of skills over time and gain many certificates and credentials, but that degree we know is still often a litmus test for many employers. And we know that also that gives our students more opportunities just over time. So this is a natural progression. And the fact that we get to do this with Unmudl and Pima and Bellevue and our other partners allows us to go to scale, which is not something that any one of us, I think, could do on our own. So it's a tremendous opportunity, I think, to provide that local learning at the same time, help with the national progression of the discussion around attainment and completion.
Very cool. So at the Institute for the Future, a couple of the zones of innovation, some future zone of innovation that you've been bringing up with your responses there is this idea of digital physical blends, where it's not an or any longer. It is the reality of our day that both the digital side and the physical side have to come together. So being able to get hands-on learning and experiences and having the contact, building social capital, but yet being able to do it from your smartphone when you have a few minutes to be able to actually learn and study. So I love how you guys are really thinking about that physical and digital blending that's happening, leveraging the community college infrastructure throughout the US. The other concept I heard you all kind of start to touch on was this idea of human-machine collaboration. So the superpowers that Lee mentioned, and you know, and the reality of so many jobs in this day where, like with Uber and Lyft, it's a computer that is managing all those drivers and instructing them as to what their job is. Hey, pick up a person from point A and stick them in your car and drive them to point B and then drop them off and now go to point C and grab your next fare. And that whole dispatch job has been taken away. But even more importantly, the job of a manager has been taken away. So a computer as a man. So nowadays we're operating with machines as our bosses or even our employees, or we're having to do one-on-one communication. So how do you all think about that with Unmudl, with everything that you've had to face with going online and getting ready for the new age, and at the same time you've been bringing up Unmudl to be able to respond to rapid reskilling, upskilling, and lifelong partnerships?
Tracy, you want to go first? You have to unmute. Okay.
That was kind of you. So let me go. I think of it as, so as a new president, I think about it as, I have 2,000 plus employees myself as an employer. So what does that mean in terms of reskilling? And I can, and so I appreciate that other panelists who will be here from CNM help us think about the future of work, which has really made my own role as an employer similar to what I think employers are seeking of our own students and our working learners, which is how do we help with these transitions of going from I would say, a technician to an analyst, right? I mean, there is still absolutely a role for individuals and work, and we all know the statistics about how the jobs of tomorrow aren't even available yet. We can't imagine them yet, but they will certainly evolve. So I do think that's why our role of, at least at community colleges and as part of this network, is so important for us to help keep people in mind keep in mind our reskilling. It's not only our students, it's our own employees, and as an employer, our responsibility to help that continuous learning, which is why I think it's fantastic that I can have my colleagues or my employees work with and take courses at PIMA as part of Unmudl. I mean, so think about the training we can all have just even among ourselves, let alone meeting our local workforce needs and our global needs. So I look at it, I think many of us are all wearing multiple hats and trying to plan for the future. And I can see where the role in Unmudl has become even more central to my core business way of doing business, and helping me relate to others who are seeking our students and what our students need to, the skills they need to have moving forward. So.
Thank you.
And Parminder, let me add with with an analogy. So those of us who are old enough to remember the days when the pilot used to carry this huge satchel, and in that satchel was all the manuals of that airplane that they were going to be piloting. Well, guess what that pilot now carries onto the airplane? An iPad. And the iPad has the pre-programming flight plan that once they get in that cockpit, they connect it up and the computer takes over. And once they get us off the ground, the computer's flying the plane, and then when it's time to land, the pilot takes back over. So that's a classic example of this digital, physical, biological integration of Industry 4.0. And by the way, that's not just touching the pilots, it's also touching the folks that we train, the airframe and power plant technicians who service and maintain those airplanes. Now with the digital pieces, they're no longer having to go back and forth to look at the manual and all that. They have it right there on their iPad. Once they complete the servicing of that particular part of the plane, they just click it, and then everybody who's connected into that same app universe, they have the updated information about servicing. So this is an exciting time for all of us, but we need to make sure we're skilling folks appropriately so that they can incorporate the digital and the physical and the biological components that are necessary to be successful going forward.
You guys have been awesome. So everybody, you heard it here first. Back to you, Julian.
Learning opportunities got you befuddled? Log on now, we'll help you finish the puzzle. Multiple courses wrapped up in one bundle, helping you to get your futures unmuddled. Helping you to get your futures unmuddled. Helping you to get your futures unmuddled.
Okay, well, I'm not turned on yet. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
You can, excellent. Okay, here we go. Sorry, just transitions. We're not quite at the, at the CNN quality shifts here with our 19 speakers, but we're doing pretty well, I must say. And it's quite a technology feat, Janae and Tiffany, keeping this all moving. But yes, the official unveiling of the Unmudl jingle there. Thank you so much, Lee, Tracy, Ed, Parminder. That was really an amazing kickoff session. And we want to dig a little bit deeper now around this notion of melding the digital and physical worlds, and how that really opens the way for a more flexible approach to training and education that doesn't sacrifice quality. It doesn't have to sacrifice quality. And what I'm really talking about now is the full range from online to hybrid to face-to-face, synchronous, asynchronous. And so I'm now joined by Nicole Trimble, who leads Talent Rewire. Hi, Nicole, there you are. Third box down, second over. Talent Rewire represents a coalition of leading companies that are focused on building pathways to success for low-skilled workers, including, sorry, I went online, Patagonia, T-Mobile, Athleta, Dave's Killer Breads. I don't know that one, but it sounds, oh, I do know that one. My family is, I'm gluten-free. And Stephen is interim chancellor of the Maricopa Community College System in Phoenix, which, and president of Gateway, which is one of the colleges of the Maricopa system, a founding Unmudl partner. And I will point out that Phoenix is the fastest growing in the city, in the fastest growing city in the US, I believe, for about 4 years. And so all sorts of connections there with employers and having to reach lots of people in lots of new ways. To jump right in here, Nicole, so our session here, why is HighFlex suddenly popular? What is HighFlex and why is it valuable to employers?
Yeah, thanks for asking me to be here to talk about this and from the employer perspective. HighFlex is when every learning activity is offered in person, synchronous online, asynchronous online. And so students can decide for themselves for every class and activity how they want to participate. And I'll tell you a personal story why this is so important. I have a son who's an engineering major and decided for him with engineering in person was really important. And he was gonna risk it this year when a lot of kids were just going online. But this semester he had both a head injury and he had COVID. And because he was in a school that had HighFlex, he's been able to keep up with his schoolwork. He's been able to like go on and watch the videos for calculus, or chemistry or engineering, which he really wanted to do in person, or he's been able to like watch a video while he had COVID and be part of the class and get called on. And so it's really important from the student perspective. From the employer perspective, you can imagine why this is so important. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's what HighFlex is.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And Stephen, so Maricopa has certainly been flexing with COVID. How is this? Can you speak a little to that? And how is this changing the way your faculty teach now and for the foreseeable future?
Thank you very much. Yes, we've had to be very flexible. It's as if Maricopa has been going through some yoga experience with the amount of flexing we've been having to do. So Julian, we appreciate that opportunity to share what we've been doing. Just to give you some perspective on Maricopa, in the spring of 2020, when the pandemic hit, we moved nearly 22,000 classes to an online environment in less than 3 weeks. That was extremely challenging. And so it's given us an opportunity to explore how we deliver education in a new way. HighFlex is one of those options that we use, but I'm going to be really honest with you. It's convenient for the student. I know our employers like it. I know our working adults like it, but some of our faculty are really struggling with it because it requires the management of students that are showing up in the classroom face-to-face, managing those that are attending online, and then also managing the student that is neither face-to-face or online that particular day, but decides to watch a recorded lesson later and then comes back to the faculty member with additional questions. So there's many moving parts to it. It certainly requires creativity and it requires flexibility. What it makes me feel like is the very first times in the late 1990s and early 2000s when we began to introduce the concept of delivering classes entirely online. As a faculty member, we talked about the struggles of doing it then and how difficult it was to deliver education online. I see this HighFlex being that same way. It's difficult, but it doesn't mean that it can't be mastered, and it doesn't mean that it can't grow. For right now, for us, it's burgeoning, and I suspect that we'll continue to give it a try.
Great. Yeah, well, change is difficult and it takes time. And I mean, it is kind of amazing how quickly you move to that 90% online, and it's going to take time to really work this through, but I just don't see us going back. I'm going to pop it over to Al now. Al, thank you both so much for that quick discussion there. And, I will say that every discussion we're having today over these 2 hours, and we're barely scratching the surface, and we see this as conversation starters. We will certainly be doing more in-depth discussions, webinars, interviews, documents, kind of flesh out all of these various points, because any one of these speakers here today could be doing a 2-hour compelling keynote for an hour or two. So thank you so much. And Al, I'm going to turn it to you to introduce our next group.
Thanks, Julian. Julian, I'm totally in agreement with you. Given what's happened with COVID-19, I don't think any of us are going back to what we used to. I think, from our school perspective, we're looking to figure out how we lean into this new normal of being online. A lot of our faculties are uncomfortable with it, but over time, we provided them with the tools to make them more comfortable with it. I really see that online modality becoming a growing part, a bigger part of our mix of courses as we move forward, hence our partnership with Unmudl. And so part of what we do, part of the Unmudl platform is all about students, but there's another part of the platform that has to deal with employers, because the purpose of educating our students is to prepare them for the workforce. So our next session is going to talk about visionary talent sourcing and with a subtitle, Not the Usual Suspects. And it's going to be moderated by Holly Zanville, Strategy Director for Future Learning and Workforce from the Lumina Foundation. I'd like to bring Holly to the screen.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Holly.
We've had a big windstorms coming through and my internet's been going in and out, so I'm hopeful someone will have to step in if not, but really pleased to introduce the new panel that's going to be talking about visionary talent sourcing and a focus on not looking for the usual suspects. And the folks on this session are Marlene Garcia, who's Executive Director of the California Student Aid Commission and former manager of the Strategic Initiatives Group at Apple. Dr. Carlos Cortez, President of San Diego Continuing Education in the San Diego Community College District, and Dr. Tony Pendergrass, President of San Juan College in Farmington, New Mexico. So let me just frame this just for a moment about talent sourcing and why we're not looking for the usual suspects. Employers are really seeking to expand their workforce to be more diverse and inclusive. And one of the most promising strategies is to work with community colleges, which do have access to very diverse student populations, do of course offer education and trainings, and are positioned very well for local and regional workforce development. So for all these reasons and for many others, community colleges are an important part of the solution. But unfortunately, there's always a but in these kind of issues. It's really not always been so easy to make the necessary connections between employers and colleges. And this is what we want to focus on in our brief time with you today. So Marlene, you're first, and I'm not seeing your picture on the screen. So I'm hoping you're here. If not, we'll switch to Carlos first. But Marlene, if you're here, the first question is about sharing with us 2 or 3 lessons that you've learned from your experiences working with community colleges about talent sourcing partnerships between community colleges and employers, and especially how they may not have been the easiest for employers to work with.
Marlene is not with us.
She's not with us. Okay. Then Carlos, you're up. And one of the things I want to point out is that I hope everyone saw it. It was a really excellent interview with you, Carlos, just published about a week ago in Evolution, entitled Continuing Ed as the Strategic Imperative for Community Colleges. And in the interview, you mentioned that when you arrived in your position 5 years ago, the San Diego Community Colleges had 0 courses fully online. And we all, of course, know what the situation is now. So in your experience, what prevents employers from working well in talent sourcing with community colleges? And what are you doing differently to try to solve these issues?
Sure. So just to clarify, my quote was that San Diego Continuing Education had 0 courses offered fully online. I'm part of a multi-college district, and there were fully online courses at the other 3 colleges in our district. It was my college that didn't. And I could go into why. It's a bit convoluted, but it has to do with the enrollment and registration and residency process. But to answer your actual question, the overall in the state of California, there are 116 accredited community colleges, and then 2 accredited adult education divisions, North Orange and San Diego Continuing Education. So there's 118 accredited institutions in the California community college system. of all the enrollments in the largest higher education system in the world, less than 3% of them are in short-term intensive career education certificate programs. San Diego continuing education offers 75 plus free short-term intensive job training programs that take 3 to 6 to 9 months to complete. These certificates are stackable, and so there's multiple points of entry, and there's usually 5, 6, 7 certificates in a pathway. So if you're in the automotive pathway, in the IT pathway, in the nursing pathway, there are opportunities to advance oneself within that pathway. This design is intentional to meet the needs of working adult learners. All too often, our community college system is focused on moving students through associate degree and bachelor degree pathways. And an associate degree can take 3, 4, 5 years for a student to complete. And we look at who our community colleges serve. They're often coming to us because they're looking to advance themselves professionally, looking to transform their lives, and they're looking to do it as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So the fact that less than 3% of our state enrollments are in non-credit short-term intensive career education pathways suggests that our state system is not focused on moving people. And I think particularly now in light of the pandemic, and this is where I believe Unmudl has a real opportunity to be a game changer, is that there is increased desire, not just by students, but increasingly by employers for our students and their employees to have requisite skills. There's not, in coding and cybersecurity and network design, and particularly in the IT and digital media pathway, there is less of an emphasis placed on degrees and credentials and a greater emphasis placed on the talent of the employees. And so creating additional opportunities to allow students to quickly move into employment opportunities, I think should be a major redesign of our community college system. I believe that the core of your question, the disconnect between employers and community colleges, is that community colleges are large public bureaucracies, and we're not nimble and we're not responsive in the way that our proprietor counterparts can be. When employers come to us for a customized training, when they come to us to make enhancements or changes to our curriculum, those types of changes move much slower through our bureaucratic systems. And so at my organization, we've been working diligently to try to eliminate as much of that red tape, to try to make ourselves more nimble and more responsive to industry. And one way that we've done that is we've moved our customized training into our foundation, which means, for example, when the San Diego Workforce Partnership or the San Diego Housing Authority comes to us and they need a customized training in a particular area for a particular group of persons, I don't have to wait 2 months till my board meets to sign a contract. We can get a contract process within 24 hours. Those are some of the roadblocks and some of the frustration I think employers often experience with community colleges, is that because there's such large bureaucratic systems, it's difficult for them to serve the needs of industry in an expedient manner.
That's so fascinating, Carlos, and good to see there's so many solutions. And that 3% statistic is really interesting. I would never have guessed it would be that percent, but that's something I think a lot of us might want to learn more about at some point. So Tony, I want to turn to you. What are you seeing working well or not so well between the employers and the community colleges in your area? And what are you doing to try to diversify talent sourcing for your employers and open up opportunities for students?
Yes, community colleges are perfectly poised for the diverse talent sourcing for employers. There are 1,050 community colleges nationally with 11.8 million students enrolled in credit and non-credit courses. Most of us at community colleges have extremely diverse student populations. For example, at San Juan College, we're extremely proud that we are a majority minority serving institution. And we are #1 in the nation for granting certificates of 1 year or less to Native American students, and #2 behind CNM in Albuquerque for granting associate degrees to Native American graduates. And To me, developing strong relationships with employers is key to successful diverse talent sourcing. Our number one strategic direction here at San Juan College is to develop an agile and responsive business model so that we can help more students get in, through, and out of college into a very good job. And we have transformed our institution by creating 7 pathways and accelerating programs with 4-week, 8-week courses that, like Dr. Cortez mentioned, and really rethinking our processes so that we can eliminate barriers for students and employers. And it's vitally important that we deliver exactly what the employer needs and we make it really easy for them to work with us. That's one reason we opted to join and be one of the founding partners in Unmudl. With some employers, we have annual contracts where we provide all of their professional development, whether that means week-long orientations for their new employees to just continuing professional development. We also do a lot of just fee-for-service, short-term training, giving them exactly what they need just in time. Some employers work directly with our career services director or our deans to find employees that possess the specific skills they're looking for. For large companies, we usually work closely with their recruiters so we can help them meet their targets and ensure that the students have the skills and competencies needed. We've also hired an internship and apprenticeship coordinator to assist our employers because, you know, these types of opportunities, internships, for example, are really a 90-day interview for the employers. We have also been extremely successful with innovative boot camps. I know many of you are familiar with boot camps that are offered in IT, but we've kind of ventured out into other areas. We offer a lot of CTE programs at the college, and we've offered several Earn While You Learn boot camps, and these have been in welding in partnership with employers and Workforce Solutions. Each time the employer has hired over 20 of the participants after a 5 or 6 week boot camp. We've also offered a CDL boot camp for water hall training and several for 3 employers.
So Tori, do you call them boot camps or is there some other name that you're using for those?
We actually call them boot camps.
Okay.
And we heavily advertise them and they earn while they earn. So it really helps underemployed or unemployed individuals. And we provide those wraparound services that they need.
It's great. Wonderful examples. And I'm looking forward to times when we can get more information. So I've got to note that Marlene is here. I'm not seeing you on the screen, Marlene, but I want to circle back and ask you whether or not you can provide us 2 or 3 lessons learned from, oh, there you are, looking around Zoom. 2 or 3 lessons learned from your experiences working with community colleges about talent sourcing partnerships with community colleges that you can share with the group. Marlene, you're on mute still.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yes, I just want to reference that it is a real priority to figure out how to make these connections with the community colleges as a pipeline for diversity, which so many companies need. Coming from the tech industry, I knew how critical that was for building that pipeline and figuring out how to connect the talent with the actual jobs that are available at Apple. One of the areas that Apple looked at, which was a really interesting, innovative project with the California Community Colleges, was the Retail Ready program. And what Apple did is, obviously retail is a huge area for Apple. And what the company did is work closely with the community colleges on the ground level, about 11 community colleges throughout the state that had retail and manufacturing programs. So what Apple did was not just come in and create the curriculum, but rather worked with the faculty to create curriculum, to add to curriculum that would expose the students to what Apple looks for when it hires its retail employees. And of course, Apple's retail employees, as you know, are really amazing, and they're, basically your Apple geniuses that you've all had experience with. So the effort was really effective. And what Apple did was, for these students, their applications were flagged if they had been through these programs, so that they would get special consideration once they applied for an actual retail job at their neighboring Apple retail store. So that was an innovative practice. I think Apple's doing a lot more work with HBCUs and really creating these coding hubs and training students. But I think the challenge is that you can't guarantee necessarily, for a lot of companies, if you're doing this on a large scale, that you're going to hire them automatically, but that they at least get consideration for having been through these specific training programs when they actually apply. So I think that those are promising practices, but with the situation that we're in now, how we accelerate and create more of a seamless connection is going to be really a critical opportunity to fully flesh out for the future.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to give you an opportunity in a lightning round to ask yourself one question. Something you would want to share with the group that I wouldn't even think to ask. And this would be just a 1 minute, 2 minute type presentation. So Tony, I'm going to start with you.
Sorry, we're having a tiny bit of difficulty hearing your sound, Holly.
Can you hear? I see everyone. Marlene's not on mute, but Tony and Carlos are on mute.
Well, I can certainly start. I'll be happy to start. So if we could ask ourselves a question, I said, what feature of Unmudl are you most excited about? And there is a module on Unmudl that allows employers to indicate what their needs are. And then this information is shared with all of the colleges so they can quickly respond. So it's just another method to assist us in developing a direct line of communication with employers. And so we can start to establish and build relationships with them. So I'm really excited about that new module.
Great. And Carlos, what would be your question and answer?
I'm not sure I necessarily got the prompt, but a question I think that relevant to this conversation that really is creating controversy across the United States at many higher education institutions is whether or not short-term intensive career education and traditional liberal arts programming can live harmoniously alongside one another. And one effort I've been taking is to create short-term intensive certificates as the starting point or the entry point into degree programs the emphasis of the short-term intensive job training is relevant or connected to traditional liberal arts pathways. An example could be a certificate in health and human services to then go on to get a degree in social work or sociology or psychology. I've been observing that many colleges are experiencing conflict, particularly between faculty who believe that this shift towards CTE is going to undermine the traditional intention or purpose of higher education. And I think there's ways they can complement one another, not be in conflict.
So interesting. Marlene, what's your quick lightning round question?
So I believe people are going to vote with their feet. And they're going to start enrolling in the courses that are most relevant to the needs they have for either reskilling or upskilling in this economy that's obviously becoming more and more automated. And frankly, I believe that process has been accelerated given COVID-19. I would like to really put on the table is how we help individuals who've been dislocated because of this past year crisis. And given my line of business now in the financial aid world, I'm interested, and I think we need to address how we help people who are unemployed, how we help them pay for access to these courses. There are some non-credit certification programs, but there are also credit, and they all have different price tags. I would like to work with partners to figure out how we can create a funding mechanism to help students offset the cost, adult learners, because adult learners are different now than when we used to think about adult education. Adult learners are everyone who needs to go back for the training and upskilling. And so I think we need to be prepared for the onslaught of people who are saying, I don't want to enroll in an undergraduate program, a 4-year program, and spend $100,000. I just need the skill sets that help me get a job in areas such as clean energy technologies, healthcare, mass transit, water industries, all these areas that are really fast growth industries, but they don't necessarily require those degrees. So I think we need to be prepared to help that segment of the population that has lost wages or have this past year, and help them regain the tools to get back into the workplace.
Thank you. You all have so much to contribute. We're going to have to unfortunately end our sprint here because it is a sprint, but join me in thanking our panel, and I'm going to turn off my video now and turn you over to the next folks. Thank you again.
Great. Well, and I'm going to pop back in here and say thank you all for really an amazing discussion. I do think and that part of what's so exciting to me about Unmudl, over the years, so many of us have been involved in learning communities where we kind of come together and learn and go away and bring back what we've learned to our home bases. And while there's an element of that here, what's so especially compelling to me is that we're doing this together. And now that we're, about ready to open up our employer portal, we're going to be doing this in partnership with employers. So all of the issues you've touched on are really, in real time, you're watching us, working our way into the future here. And now is time for a demonstration of Unmudl. And I'm just going to say that the demo is being led by Social Tech's Chief Operating Officer, Marilee Mayo. And Marilee is joined by our partner, Ramji Raghavan, who's the CEO of Progress Systems and Future of Work Strategist, greatest title ever, Erica Barrero, who's championed the adoption of Unmudl at Central New Mexico. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Marilee and team.
Thanks, Julian. Can everybody hear me? Yes, good. I just want to give a little preview of the order of events in this little segment. First up will be Erica. She'll cover some of the basic features on the learner side of Unmudl, and she'll expound a bit on how colleges are using this platform to innovate. And then we'll hear from Ramji Raghavan, who will conduct a walkthrough of some upcoming Unmudl features that he and his team have designed to overcome a lot of the issues involved in non-credit to credit pathways planning. And then finally, you'll hear from me, and I'll introduce Unmudl's upcoming employer features via which employers can directly requisition courses, facilities, services, and talent from community colleges across the US. So first up, Erica.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for attending today and hearing about Unmudl. I am a self-proclaimed champion of the Unmudl platform. It's just been such a wonderful experience to be involved in it. And the great thing is I get a video that actually can help articulate some of the amazing features of this platform. So I'm going to share that first with you.
Hello, and welcome to a quick introduction and preview of the new Unmudl Marketplace. What's Unmudl? Glad you asked. We're a completely different way for working learners to connect with employers. With Unmudl, you'll be accessing our Course to Jobs marketplace of course offerings from our coast-to-coast network of community college partners. By making it easier for working learners to access a broad range of skills-driven courses from the workforce divisions of community colleges, the pathway from school to job becomes more streamlined, or, wait for it, unmuddled. Think of it like ordering a la carte from a menu of courses, meaning that you can take classes from one, many, or all of our community college partners simultaneously. And here's where it gets especially interesting. The courses offered through the Unmudl Marketplace are those requested or most needed by community employers to fill short-term workforce needs. In many cases, employers often hire right out of the workforce courses. That's why Unmudl makes sure you can actually see which employers are hiring out of the specific courses. That's what makes Unmudl a course-to-jobs marketplace. The Unmudl Marketplace currently offers courses from these community colleges: Bellevue, CNM, Pima, Gateway, San Diego Continue Education, San Juan, SUNY Broome, and more are joining the network in coming months. And because Unmudl's courses come from real community colleges, you'll benefit from all their real academic perks, like actual professors grading your homework, answering your questions, and writing letters of recommendation. You'll have access to real campus facilities and services like libraries and academic advisors. It's really exciting that our community colleges are working together to design a system that allows you to mix and match courses from multiple colleges and still get a real degree from a real college of your choosing. On Unmudl, you have your choice of class formats: online, in-person, or hybrid. It depends on the skills and instruction methods. For example, courses like linesman training are better held mostly in person because, really, we wouldn't expect anyone to repair high voltage electrical wiring after just watching an internet video, right? And we've also made it so that the same course can count twice, once towards a job and once towards a degree. In fact, this Introduction to Autonomous Vehicles course actually counts 3 times: once towards a job, once towards a certificate at Pima Community College, and once towards a commercial driver's license. So, is shopping the Unmudl Marketplace right for you? Well, if you're looking for the most efficient path from school to job, needing an extra skill or two to get to that next level in your career, in the military, or your education keeps getting interrupted from frequent moves, not sure what you want to do in life, or are curious about changing professions, or wanting to try a degree path and see how it fits, and if you can't afford $200,000 of student debt right now or ever, hands down, Unmudl is absolutely for you. And there you go, the lowdown on Unmudl and the ways it can help you get ahead. And please be sure to follow our social media channels for the latest news about what's happening at Unmudl. Thanks so much, and we look forward to connecting with you soon.
So that video provides a nice overview of the Unmudl experience from a learner perspective. And one of the things that it didn't really show is the ease with which you can navigate Unmudl in terms of purchasing a course. So our president, Tracy Hartzler, had kind of referenced that a lot of learners find it challenging to navigate our websites, our application process, having to register for courses. And one of the really exciting things about Unmudl is that, similar to the Amazon experience, all they have to do is put in some basic information, their name, email, or phone number, and ultimately, if they're purchasing a course, their credit card, to purchase a course or multiple courses from a number of providers in a very simple way. And so one of the opportunities that's really exciting for Unmudl, being involved in Unmudl, is it's really creating a landscape and an opportunity for us to rethink, like, how do we take what we're learning and seeing and the ways that learners respond to the Unmudl marketplace and actually embed that in our own systems to make it easier for students to come into and engage in the courses and the degree pathways that we offer. Another thing that I am really excited about is that this is the first time that I've been in a network where I'm closely working with and meeting every other week with community colleges that are engaged in this type of work. And we get to share best practices and how we are doing different things like credit for prior learning. How are we engaging in curriculum that goes from non-credit to credit and awards students for those learning experiences that aren't traditionally captured on a transcript. And so with that, I'm going to transition because one of the pieces that I'm really excited to go live on Unmudl, and it's not quite there yet, is a tool that will actually show learners what courses, non-credit courses, skills courses will actually lead them towards earning a certificate or a degree at our community colleges. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ramji.
Thanks, Erica. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We can. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to share my screen and walk through what this looks like. Again, I'm Ramji, I'm the CEO of Pragya, and I'm excited to partner on this initiative. And primarily our mission is to help learners contextualize and make informed choices about their learning experiences in the context of college pathways and careers, right? And so I'm going to sort of pick up where Erica left off in the learner demo, right? So if I were to wear a learner's hat and I'm browsing, the Unmudl marketplace, and I find, a course that I like, right? And now I can look at it, so how much does it cost, but a little bit more about the course, and I can go buy it, right? But if this one course that's published in the Unmudl marketplace is a step towards a larger pathway, a certification or a degree pathway, as many of the panelists earlier described, I mean, that's part of, what is really cool about Unmudl. And so, what happens is, that shows up out here, right? And to inform the learner that, hey, by taking this course, you're going to be 18 credits out of 33 credits into getting a certificate, right? Or there could be multiple options, right? I mean, you could be awarded credits to 1 or 2 certificates or 1 or 2 associate's degree programs, and it doesn't really matter, right? And so, you get a quick peek into what this looks like, and, they can click on it and to get a deeper look into, okay, what does that really mean, right? And so part of, I think, what we're trying to accomplish is contextualize that, look, by taking this, you're taking one step or maybe multiple steps into actually getting, a credential. But that credential could also, this is what it means from a career perspective, right? And so we'll get to the career part in just a second. But, if you look at this a little bit more, so it's essentially, it sort of calls out, says, look, by taking this course, you're 55% into getting this credential, the certificate, right? And so you can look at what courses that you get credited for, but it's possible that this learner may have taken other courses. And in this case, this is a course that's offered by CNM. They may have taken courses in CNM before. So, we provide them an opportunity where they can come and say, look, if of all the courses that you need for this particular program, I've taken this one other course, right? And so they can add their own courses that they may have taken in addition to what they're being awarded for here. And so now they're 63% in, right? And so so this really gives them an idea and sort of nudges them towards actually getting a certificate. But they can dive deeper and say, you know what, why should I go get the certificate? Why should I take those extra 12 credits to go get the certificate? And we connect them with, and give them this holistic exploration experience where they can actually dive deeper into what does it actually mean, right? From the career prospects of this particular certificate. So, and I'm going to sort of walk you through a little bit. And, under the hood, really what we are doing is we're tapping into the different requirements for getting this particular credential, whether it's a degree or a certificate inside the college, but also tapping into labor market information, employers, and so on and so forth, right? And so here is a sort of a quick look at what this could look like, right? If I get this business analytics certificate, this is what I could expect to earn. This is the growth rate nationally initially, and these are the kinds of careers that it opens the doors for, right? And what I expect to learn, and I can look at what are the top companies that recruit, what are the skills that I would need or that are required by employers, and the foundational skills, special skills, and there are even skills which may actually give me a salary bump, right? That are actually called out. And we work with our partner Burning Glass in sort of pulling all of this information together. And I can I can even regionally narrow this down and say, look, what about in Albuquerque, right? And so it sort of brings, the companies who recruit in the region, right? And so it's quite powerful that way. I could look at it from a state perspective, sort of broaden that a little bit more, and the skills that are required by employers may be a little bit different, for the similar kind of thing, right? So that's one aspect of it. But then I can dive deeper into the careers that we just saw, right? And so here are all the different careers. And I could go deeper and what does it mean, to be a BI developer or architect, right? And so, what are the companies which post? What are the kinds of skills that are needed? What are the typical wages? I can look at related careers. If I take this, I can sort of build on it and become a data scientist, and that may increase my income even more. I can then go back and say, okay, I was looking at this career. What program again can I do, from this college perspective? Really, it's connecting the dots from a single course in Unmudl to, the richer offerings, that say a CNM offers, and also the associated career prospects of it. So I just want to pause here, and I don't know if Erica, Murli, you want me to cover anything else on this front?
I think we're probably okay for the time being. Let me get through the employer portal, and if we have any time left over, people can actually ask questions, which would be shocking. So let me go ahead and introduce the employer portal, which several people have mentioned a couple of times. Let's see. There we go. Can everybody see that? Okay, fantastic. So the employer portal is a new feature for Unmudl that'll be rolled out around December 10th. And the goal of this portal is to make it drop dead easy for employers to work with community colleges and their students. So no longer would an employer have to say, okay, we've got like 17 plants across the country, which community colleges actually are in the area of those plants, what individual in each community college did I send an email or call to get started with my request? And then from there, how do I navigate each individual college's bureaucracy and processes and systems in order to get approval and to get this thing going? So what we're trying to do with this portal is get rid of all of that red tape process so that it's possible for an employer to get what they need in the click of a few buttons. So let me just show you how that's going to work. Great. So this is what the employer portal looks like. They have a set of functionalities along the left-hand side, and we're inside the one called Contact Colleges. So inside this functionality is where you actually submit requests to colleges. This is a list of requests that have been sent so far, and I'm going to generate a new request. So here, all I have to do is think of, what is the title of my request? What is the category of my request? And here we actually have several subcategories to choose from for each category. We have courses, skills, courses, credentials, services, and facilities / equipment for the major categories. And then the subcategories allow you to target more specifically your request, which in turn allows that request to be automatically routed by messaging and email to the right person in each college that handles that request. So here an employer says, I want to commission a new course. And I want this course to be accessible to everybody in the good old US of A. All right, and now we're just going to add a little more description to that request, so people know what it is exactly what we're looking for. If we had a lot of information, we could attach a file. Okay, and in this section, what you're doing is you're saying, who do you want to see this request? It can go out to all colleges in the Unmudl network, or it can go out to some selected colleges, say all colleges in Texas, all colleges in the Southwest, or you can just pick and choose individual colleges from the list. In this case, it's going out to all colleges. Here we are previewing the request that we just created, and we can submit. And the request appears on the bottom line here as a new request that we've just sent. And if we need to go back and edit it or change it, we can do that. Okay. So that's what it looks like on the employer side. And then, of course, since the request was sent to the colleges, we should look at what the college gets to see. They have a different portal with different functionalities along the left-hand side, because they have to do things like upload courses, course descriptions for people to view on the marketplace, manage the financial transactions that are going on as students buy courses, managing learner lists and instructors. So they have a lot of different functionalities that the employers don't have. But here, down here, is where they go to look at what the employers have just sent them. And that's what you're seeing on this main page here. The request that I just sent as an employer is now showing up on the college's portal as this top request. Yep, I'm an employer. I sent this request. It's showing up in the college portal. The college has the opportunity to respond to that request. They can add to the response anybody in their college that they think ought to be CC'd in on the discussion. They too can attach files if necessary. As I attach this file, I'm actually going into my computer and pulling it up via the usual file interface selector. Okay, and so now I've just responded to the employer's request. And there is a conversation module as well where you can go back and forth and see the record of the correspondence between the employer and the college. So this is all actually on our test server right now, undergoing debugging and beta testing, a feature which is still in design. So I don't have sort of live but canned footage of it. This is still sort of on the drawing board stage, but it will be out on December 10th, is the source talent feature. So let me show you what that looks like. This is the way in which employers can interact with the colleges to get the students that they want for specific jobs. It's a little different than systems you're probably used to, because the way we've structured it, employers actually reach into individual courses to message the students in that course or the instructors in that course with information about job openings. So for students, it would say, hey, you know, look at this great job that we have available, please apply. For instructors, the message might be something more like, hey, give us 6 of your best students who really performed well in the algorithm sections of your course, because we're really looking for people with that expertise. So let's just go through and see what this looks like. All right, we're inside of source talent. We've decided to send this message to all students who are in the Introduction to Microsoft Excel course. And this is the message that we want to send. There was a little apply here, which will take them to our corporate website to apply. Reviewing the message. We can send this to one course or many courses. This list just shows that the message was sent. You can see it there. And this is what the conversations look like between the employers and the students and or instructors that respond. So it's sort of a chat interface where every piece of dialogue is captured and you can follow up with people. So all of this should be live at or around December 10th. And I think that's pretty much it for what I had to share. So I'll
And
just—
Marilee, there's a question about, can individual colleges determine the routing of an incoming employer inquiries and specify different contexts within the institution?
Yes, so it will be on the college side. There's a menu that says, okay, for this type of request and sub request, what are the email addresses that you would like to be notified when this comes in? So it could even be multiple people in a department if you want to have, coverage in case somebody's out. So yes, so it's sort of segregated by functionality. And then if there's a sort of one of these categories that's like other, it's probably going to end up going to the super admin, the person who's sort of in charge of the Unmudl portal generally, who will try to figure out who in their college it should have gone to, since not every request can we identify ahead of time.
And I was going to add that one of the things, both from the learner perspective and the employer perspective, is that it really, the design, on the back end of the college, we want to avoid bouncing learners from person to person to person. So really, they have one interface, like the learners have one interface where all of their messages from 7 different community colleges or the 3 that they've registered for all go through that interface. And the same with the employers. It's on the back end that we can assign who's going to respond to particular messages. But it reduces the layers that people have to navigate through to get to the right person.
Yeah, it didn't receive a lot of airtime, but one of the features that I kind of like is before you buy a course, you can, message Unmudl if you're having technical difficulties, you don't understand it, but you can also like message the college and say, hey, is this course really the one I should be taking? I see 3 courses look kind of identical. Can you help me out here? So there is much more personal support for the learner than there is in a typical sort of course aggregator system where you just buy a course and pay and then you're on your way and good luck with you, via con Dios. So that's, I think I really look forward to seeing how this plays out as more and more learners come online. I think that's it. Does anybody else have any questions or issues, or are we ready to move on to the next section, Julian?
I think we are, and Al's going to actually introduce the next section. I wish people could see. I feel like every one of these sections, all I'm doing is smiling and bobbing and bobbing. I thought you all were amazing. It's so wonderful to see actually the latest iteration, Ramji, of the back end link between non-credit and credit. I mean, I think it's such an incredibly important advance that we truly have not been able to figure out, and Unmudl's doing it. I do want to say before I hand it over to Al, who's going to introduce the next panel. So thank you so much, Marilee, Erica, Ramji. And I want to say, Al, before we turn it over to you, we are just putting a little plug here, employers. We're, now that the employer piece, the employer portal is in kind of V1.0, I'm actually bringing employers on for a 6-month pilot to work with us to help us really refine and improve that piece of the marketplace, just as we have with our amazing colleges. So, you'll see at the end of this where to find us, how to contact us, but any folks, companies that want to be a part of it. And we're especially interested, we want to work with employers of all shapes and sizes. I'm particularly talking now in the early stage with large employers that want to work and access community colleges across the country, but don't really have that access that Unmudl provides. So I'm going to leave it there. That's my ad. Al, it's all yours.
Thank you, Julian. I really enjoyed the last segment. My camera was off, but I was giving a standing ovation to the video that was shown and to the comments of Erica. A lot of hard work went into that, and I was just amazed at it. As a matter of fact, I put a plug into Parminder to ask for a copy of that so I could show it to our college. So without further ado, the main reason we're here is for students. And our next panel is going to talk about what do learners want and what do learners need. This segment is going to be moderated by Kevin Drum, president of SUNY Broome. So I'd like to bring Kevin to the screen. Is Kevin with us? Oh.
Somebody's got to bring me up.
He's got you. Log on now, we'll help you finish the puzzle. Multiple courses wrapped up in one bundle, helping you to get your futures unmuddled. Helping you to get your futures unmuddled. Helping you to get your futures.
Okay. Now we got to bring up Landon, Jordan, and Chris. I'm assuming that I know they're there. I can see their names. There's Jordan.
And Landon is here. There's Landon, and we got Chris there somewhere. I thought I saw Chris on the.
Yes, I'm here.
All right. There we go. All right. Good afternoon. Now we get to the heart of the matter. This is why we're all here and why we do what we do to reach our students. I'm just going to go around. I'm the moderator here, folks, and I'm going to go around and ask a few questions. We've got about 20 minutes to talk with these students who agreed to join us today. And I'm just going to go around my screen as I see you. Your order is probably different than mine, knowing how these Zoom things go, and ask you a question to respond to. But give us a little thumbnail, 30 seconds about yourself and your background, and then answer the question. I'm going to do one question at a time, so I'm not going to be a journalist and ask 2 or 3 in a row and have you try to remember them. But if you could spend that 30 seconds telling us just a little bit about your background and what's wrong with our educational system, particularly our higher educational system, as you view it today. Landon, you're the first one on my screen.
Great, awesome. Well, again, thanks so much for having me. My name is Landon Taylor. I am a sales account executive for a marketing technology company called Nativo. We work with a lot of Fortune 500 brands, helping bridge the gap between the stories they want to tell and telling them to their consumers and meeting them where they're at in an environment they're already comfortable in. And to talk about the question about what's wrong with the higher education system right now, I had a quick anecdote. I was working to get my degree in PR and advertising when I was in college. But during the time, I actually had I got a job at an advertising agency that covered all of the Mazda North American operations. And I was working full time. And a part of my requirement for graduating was an internship. And I went to the office and I said, hey, I know that I need to have this internship before I can graduate, but I actually already have a full-time job in the industry that I'm trying to get a degree to get into. And they said, hey, we understand that, but you still have to have this internship. And so I said, you mean to tell me that I would have to quit my job and therefore take this internship to graduate? And they said, this is how it goes. And I think for me, it was at that moment that I actually had to make the decision that I was not going to finish at that college because I had children at the time. I had a full-time job. I was doing what the goal of going to school is to do, right? And I think that there's an issue there. There's a disconnect there between the reality and the world that we're living in right now, and that not everyone has the traditional path into higher education, into post-education, but it doesn't mean they don't desire it. And so I think we have to be flexible and agile and learn to adapt to the different lifestyles that are out there.
Thank you, Landon. Chris, you're going around. Actually, I'm going counterclockwise, but I do a lot of things backwards. Just ask my faculty. You want to tell us just a little bit about yourself and critique our higher education system a bit from your perspective?
Sure. So I'm Chris Lewis. I'm a business agility and executive coach. So I work with organizations, mainly in the IT space, but also organizational wide, to kind of help them deliver digital products to their customers faster and do so in a way that doesn't burn out their team, right? So my current clients are Florida Blue and Morgan Stanley, which are, great companies in their own right. So to your question of what is wrong, I'll, maybe do a shocker and say nothing, right? There's nothing wrong. I think Landon kind of touched on it. It's all about the customer and figuring out what works for you. And I think in where we are now, especially with COVID, it gives organizations and educational institutions the opportunity to listen to the customer, right? Which is the student, and treat them like customers and say, hey, if we offer this, would you buy it, right? And taking more of an Amazon model and saying, hey, I want to offer something that you would buy. So I don't think there's anything wrong, because I think the ones that are flexible, to use Landon terms, Landon's term, are the ones that are going to be more open to listening to the customer. And then as a customer, you have options, right? So I don't think anything's wrong because there's options. And if you want to be a part of that option, it's just listening to the students and listening to the customers.
Thank you, Chris. Well, Jordan, that leaves you. Actually, you're the center square here on my computer. I don't know if you ever saw Hollywood Squares on television. You may be a little too young. You may be a little too young for that, unless you're probably on cable somewhere. Tell us a little bit about your background. I also learned something interesting. You might want to tell us a little bit that you conducted a mission not too long ago. You might want to tell us a little bit about that, and then about what your any area of critique you have for our higher education system today.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm Jordan. I wrote the jingle that you heard part of at the end there, the Unmudl jingle. And I'm not a jingle writer. Well, I am now that I've done it, I am. But my wife and I and our 3 kids, we volunteer full-time for an international nonprofit organization that works primarily in the Middle East. That's a Christian organization that does relief work. And so we spent most of the last, well, we were in Iraqi Kurdistan for about a year, serving the Peshmerga. They were going into the areas around Mosul, rescuing civilians that were under attack from ISIS. So our organization set up a casualty collection point for their military, and then a care center for any civilians coming out of Mosul. And then my wife and I moved over to the Turkish Republic of North Cyprus, just the illegally occupied northern third of the island of Cyprus, south of Turkey, west of Syria. And so we've been living there doing an addiction recovery ministry for Turkish-speaking people on the island of Cyprus. So it's funny how we go from that to I wrote a jingle for Unmudl. But I started doing music stuff for our organization just to spread the values a little bit. And at that time, my sister actually was doing social media for Unmudl, and she introduced it to me. I was just asking her what she's up to. And so she pitched Unmudl to me, and I was like, whoa, this is brilliant. This is so cool. I wish this was around like in 2006 when I was graduating. I wish I had an option like this, because it's making education super accessible and there's no limitations. And especially the thing that really got me was including community colleges, because I've always believed in the financial wisdom of going to community college. And there's always this unfortunate stigma sometimes attached with community college that I don't think it deserves, because it's really wise. It's a good option for so many people. So I hear about how they're bringing all these things together, and I was like, oh man, I want to get behind this. I want to do something. And so because I was already just messing around with a little raps for our organization, I thought I'll just write a little jingle for Unmudl. So I wrote it, and I thought, hey, that's not bad. I sent it to my sister, and she passed it on to Parminder, and she said, hey, we love it. I was like, really? You guys like it? So it was really cool, because I felt excited. I wanted to help spread the word about Unmudl. I believe in it. I think this is going to be really a tool that a lot of people are going to be, it'll help point them to their future. And I think this is awesome. And so I donated the jingle. I didn't ask for money because I didn't want to take from this. I was like, look, I just want to give to this. This is a beautiful thing. I like this. I hope it succeeds. I want it to succeed, and I want people to use it. So I hope that in a small way, my jingle will be to that end.
Thank you, Jordan. I've got I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curve and give you a little context for this, because you all have kind of alluded to some career interests, if you want to put it that way, and you're following some of those right now. My wife has her own business. She's a sole proprietor. My son wants to have his own business. Doesn't want to be boxed in like his dad in the education world. People tend to think educators have all this flexibility. Lots of entrepreneurs on my wife's side. But the only way my wife can advance her education, being so busy as a sole proprietor, and she is busy, is this way, where she can go online and get her professional development. She has no other time as a sole proprietor and a wife and a mom and all that. Each of you, have you thought about just jumping out and starting your own business and doing solely that? Out of curiosity, so many more of your generation tend to think in that way than say my generation, when we just thought about going out and getting that big corporate job. I'm kind of curious because entrepreneurship really drives the world and has driven the U.S. economy from the beginnings. With Benjamin Franklin, one of our more famous founding father entrepreneurs, extremely successful entrepreneur. So I'm kind of curious if you've thought about that, because this is the sort of thing that entrepreneurs would look toward versus a traditional education for which they have no time. Landon, you want to say, have you ever thought about just jumping out and doing? Obviously, you're doing. All three of you are doing some of your own thing. I'm just kind of curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. I think entrepreneurship is something that's on the top of everyone's mind. I think that in a perfect world, everyone would want to be their own boss. I think for me, what I've learned, it's about the fact that I think that you can have the best of both worlds. And the way I look at it is, one, I'm really lucky in sales, especially if you're in a sales organization that is run healthily and has great mentorship. They allow you to be your own entrepreneur. I'm in charge of my own book of business. The work that I put in will put out what I put out. I was blessed during COVID to have a really great couple of quarters. But it was because of the work that I put in, and no one pressured me, and no one was micromanaging me, and I was responsible for it, and I did well. I think that the way I look at life is I believe that we're all, no matter what age we are, but I say this to a lot of my peers, I say, we're too young to wake up and hate our lives. There's been jobs where I've been in where I literally only looked forward to the 1st and the 15th. And I realized there was no way for me to live. And I was like, I can't do it. Even if on paper, the money was good, the title was good, I learned very quickly that money cannot sustain you. So I think the goal that we should find is find something that makes you happy, that makes you wake up and be excited for the challenge, even if it is under someone else. Because just because you have something that has a boss doesn't mean you can't use that to fund your dreams. Right. So I'm in tech sales, but I'm really into wine. I'm a level 1 sommelier working on my level 2 right now. My wife is a coffee blogger. So our dream is to open up a coffee wine shop, coffee during the day, wine at night. But I know that I have to keep doing my 9 to 5 to have the funds to do that. Right. And so I think that we've got to get away from this idea that it's all or nothing. Right, that working for the man is the new slavery, right, or whatever they say, right? That's not true, right? Because I think that happiness, rest, contentment, and joy is the biggest form of rebellion, in my opinion. I know my answer is kind of long-winded or not really necessarily answer the question, but I think my point is that you can be an entrepreneur in whatever you're doing. Right, even if it is a 9 to 5, right? There's that book Lean Startup. They talk about how IBM had that incubator within their office, right? And so
the gig economy, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my answer. That's my response.
I think some small business courses on Unmudl.
That's right.
Dan, I think we've opened up a market here.
That's right.
Chris, your thoughts on maybe having your own gig someday entirely? And I know you're already doing some of it.
Yeah. So, Landon, you said it beautifully. You know what I mean? To me, entrepreneurship is a mindset, right? It's just about enjoying what you do. It's not about, this client or this revenue. It's really about enjoying what you do. So, but yeah, I'll just keep it short because he said it so beautifully. So I actually took a Scrum Master course and a certified product owner course. Back in 2015 or so at Bellevue College. And then 2 years later, I'm running my own shop. So, I have the clients that I go in, whether I work with a staffing company or a recruiter, I'm able to, everything's coming in-house, no taxes, anything. I have my own P&L that I have to manage. So long story short, I've done it. And I've done it by way of utilizing things like Unmudl, right? By just going after the PMI, ACP, the Scrum Master course, the product owner course, and then going out into the marketplace to say, hey, you know what, I enjoy doing this. That's my motivation. Yet I also can make more doing this if I'm on my own, right? And then merge the two together and I'm in bliss.
So someday instead of Mackenzie, it'll be Lewis. It'll be right out there on nationwide name.
Albert Christopher Solutions. That's a
There
plug.
you go.
Albert Christopher Solutions.
Jordan, do you want to be that character on Men, Charlie Sheen, who wrote jingles for a living? You might want to live the rest of his life. Well, you might want to do that too, but
No, thanks. Just the first part, just the jingles will be fine. Yeah, actually, after doing this jingle, I got really inspired. So I did one for my father-in-law's pool company, and that went pretty well too. So there's a website called Fiverr that you can like sell services. So I logged on Fiverr and got a little profile there. So if anyone wants to buy a jingle, I'm the man. So it's a small step in that direction.
That's how all businesses start, one step at a time. Bill Gates started his by quitting Harvard University, was his big step. When he decided to go off on his own, he had quite a vision. Albert, how are we doing on time?
We have approximately 3 minutes or so left. You're doing pretty good.
Okay. Well, if each of you, wants to, take a minute to, to close us out, Jordan, we'll go backwards this time, and give us your thoughts on how you see Unmudl impacting the world here in the next several years. Give us a minute on that, and we'll start with Jordan and go backwards this time.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, because my situation, I spend most of my time overseas, not in the States. And the fact that it's like a community college, in a town I grew up in would be available while I'm overseas, I think it's a game changer. I think it's giving all the tools and it's making education super accessible for anyone with a computer. And well, the internet's a little slow where I've been living, but apart from that, it's like it's a great option. I think that really is a game changer. So I'm really looking forward to how far-reaching this can be.
Thank you, Jordan. Chris, any thoughts to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a great platform, especially with my experience in the tech space. I see people all the time with unconventional paths, right? They may not have had some people don't even have a 4-year degree, right? And that's fine, right? Because they are a Salesforce expert, they're a Salesforce expert, or they are an expert at some type of programming language. So I think technology has really knocked down barriers for people to just be able to be effective and productive. And I think this platform enables the progress of that.
Yeah, my son doesn't want a 4-year degree, and he sort of apologizes as the son of a college president. He was taking some business classes. He's in our business program here, and then wants to go to automotive school and have his own automotive repair business someday. He does all the work on his own vehicle now, saves a fortune. I'm him instead of my mechanic.
And that's interesting because you can audit courses, right? You don't have to. You can sit in and if he wants to run a repair business, his main thing is the car, right? That's where he's spending, that's his technical expertise. And if he wants to learn about bookkeeping or something like that, he can go on to Unmudl and just do that. Yeah.
That's why he's not here with us, because his accounting class is meeting right now, or he would have been here with us. Landon, you want to close us out?
Yeah, I think a quick comment I wanted to say to you, Kevin, is I think that I want us to get to a place where that's totally okay and accepted and celebrated equally. That your son doesn't want a 4-year degree, right? I think that's something that I want it to be equally celebrated as having a 4-year degree. And I think that the cool thing is, and I'm just really excited, inspired, and just really pumped about Unmudl. I interact with a lot of individuals who didn't go on a traditional path, and then they feel lost. They feel like they don't know what to do the next step. Their only answer is to move away. I live in California, a very expensive place to live. And a lot of times if they have a child early or they have to take care of a relative, they feel the only answer is to leave because they can't figure out their life because it wasn't on the path that was quote unquote the right societal path. And I think what Unmudl does is it goes, okay, don't panic. You can still do this. Let's gather your resources, because people forget what they've already accomplished. And it's so easy for us to be self-deprecate, just really so hard on ourselves that we forget the amazing things that we've done. So Unmuddled reminds you who you are, puts you together in a path, and lays out a path for what you can still do, right? And we get scared, we want to procrastinate, and we say, oh man, we can't do this program because it's going to be 3 years. It's going to be a 3-year program. But guess what? 3 years later, you're still going to be sitting there saying, oh, it's going to be a 3-year program when you could have started and been done in 3 years, right? And so I think Unmuddled gives that clear path, gives something in front of people's faces, and gives them an accomplishment that they can reach that inspires people. So I'm really excited about Unmuddled. And I'm excited to see it grow and want to continue to be a part of it any way I can.
So there we go. We have a potential tagline for Unmuddled. Don't panic. Well, thank you guys very much. This was great. It's been a joy for me to get to know you all a little better. And it's time for our next segment, I think. Back to Albert.
Well, so yes, and
Julian, okay.
Al and I are here, and thank you all so much. What an inspiring set of speakers and points you covered. I guess one thing that I wanted to just jump in with, and I'll hand it over back to you, Al, is I actually read recently that Gen Z, which I think, Kevin, these 3 guys for the most part probably represent, is likely to have 3 times as many jobs as Gen Xers. Another place I read, like 17 to 19 for many. And what that says to me, and I think a part of what we're about here, is helping people really get that training that's going to get them to the next step on the next path, to the next credential, whatever it is that they need to move forward. It's like, what have we but our skills to carry forward with us? Whether it's in entrepreneurship, which you talked about, or in a large organization or small organizations. I mean, ultimately, with the constant change and churn, we need to be able, that's fine. That's the way it is. And we need institutions that can keep pace with that. And that's what community colleges really are about. Al, closing comments from you before we let all our folks go here?
Absolutely. In full transparency, Christopher Lewis is my son, and he took that class at Bellevue College. And one of the reasons we asked him to be on the panel is we talk a lot about entry-level jobs and entry-level opportunities. But what we also find is you got people who are in careers who want to transition. And so just like you have entry-level folks that are looking to move to the next level, you've got mid-career people that are looking to move to the next level. And Chris, and we all have examples at every school, because Chris was working for Accenture at the time he took the course. And most people think, Accenture, I'm going to retire from there, I'm going to make a lot of money. He quit and went to another organization to do what he got this training for. And then this training eventually led to him being an entrepreneur. And all of us as community colleges have those kind of stories. And I think that we want to make sure that we tell those stories as well as the stories about the entry level. This has been a fantastic show. I think the presentations have been very fantastic. I wish we could all be together, because it would be, I can only imagine the energy that we would generate all being in one place. But I want to thank all the speakers and all the panelists for being here today as we kick off Unmudl and this great new adventure that we're on. Julian, back to you.
No, well, and thank you so much for doing this, Al. I feel like, maybe if we could throw in a few jokes, we could be a comedy team, perhaps.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to thank all the speakers, everyone who attended. What an amazing group. If you wouldn't mind, Tiffany, forwarding this to the very last slide for us. For more information, feel free to contact me, Jay Alcid at socialtech.ai, and I will make sure I connect you with anyone you want to connect with in this session. We also would love to have conversations with anyone that wants to be a part of this. We really are looking for partners in crime that get it and want to help us bring education, learning to the future. Thank you so much, Janae.
Great presentation. Thank you so much for being part of the closing community and sharing such an amazing project and platform. So we appreciate all of you. And we'll be back December 3rd with Chancellor Lee Lambert, who's going to be our keynote. So we're excited about that. Stay in touch with the closing community. And again, thanks, Parminder and the entire team for the great presentation.
Thanks, Janae. Thank you.